Lewis. I host the Time to Wine broadcast, and I'm in Eugene, Oregon. Today we're talking to Elizabeth Gabay in France. She has a degree in history and a master's of wine. She also writes about modern wine regions and has a book, Rosé, Understanding the Pink Revolution. Elizabeth, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your book?
A little bit about myself. Yes, I became a Master of Wine 22 years ago when the world was quite different. There was red, white and sparkling and not much rosé. And then I was busy working in the London wine trade. And then when my kids were little, 19 years ago, we moved to rural France. So I now live in a small village up in the mountains in the south of France. Very, very different. No vineyards anywhere. And when was it? 2016. When was that? 5 years ago. As a joke, I suggested to a publisher, what about a book on rosé? And to my complete and utter surprise, they said yes. And that was how I understood about rosé. I wasn't a rosé drinker before. But as you said, I have a history degree. So my approach to rosé was just, where does rosé come from? I didn't see it just as a modern phenomena. It was a very rich history. So that was my background for it.
That sounds wonderful. So why did you decide to study, have a Master of Wine?
Oh, I don't know. You know, some people think they have this vision in their life. They're going to become a doctor or a surgeon. And I'd worked in publishing. I'd worked in the theatre. I'd gone traveling around the world. And I came back to London and I didn't have a job. So I was on holiday. I tasted some wine I liked. I thought I'll try selling it in London, as one does. Came home with, in those days, you could bring a case of wine back on the plane. And just by default, London in the 1980s was so buzzy with wine. There were, everywhere you went, every night of the week, there were tastings. You met people, you tasted wine, and I just went with the flow. And I started the Masters of Wine. I don't know. There were less than 200 people, 150 people when I started, less than that. So I never thought I would get it. And then I did. So it was a bit of a shock. It was one of those things that just happened, really.
Oh, that's so wonderful. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your book?
So the book, always at hand. I don't know if you can see it.
Yes, I can see it.
Bit of a glare. So when I started writing the book, I guess like a lot of people, I knew Provence Rosé because Provence Rosé had such successful marketing. And I envisaged the book basically being about the rosés of Provence. And then I started discovering, I used social media a lot. I started calling out, can anyone tell me about rosé? Tell me about rosé. And then discovered, you know, America has a really long history with rosé. So that came in, and then Spain, and then Italy. And it just kept on growing. And in the end, I ran out of space. There was so much more I could write. And now I look at the book and I think, oh my goodness, I knew nothing. In the past 3 years since it was published, 2 years, 3 years, I've learned so much more. And I find rosé now one of the most exciting categories of wine in the world because there is so much happening. So the book looks at the history in each country, how the style has evolved. It's not really a guide to recommend wines. It's more to allow somebody who likes rosé to learn to understand why they like that style and where to go. So it's hopefully more of a book that you can read to appreciate the style.
If someone wanted to purchase your book, how would they find it?
Amazon or the Classic Wine Library website also has. And if you're going to buy it on Amazon, if you can see that it has the pink bit here,
Okay.
The book with the pink bit has the photos. In America, it's grey and there are no photos. So go for the non-American version if you can.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question here. So there is a myth that rosé is only for the summer. So tell us about why would we be drinking rosé in the winter?
Well, first of all, let's just go back into why rosé for the summer. So when I first started selling wine, I was a child prodigy in the 1980s. You would they'd make the rosé, which was bled off the red wine. I would put it on the wine market in May, and by September it was losing its freshness. So in the very early years, rosé only lasted for that summer. So technically, that was one reason. And that stayed. And also, I think marketing, Instagram had a major effect on us thinking of summer. If if you think, what is your first image of rosé? It's a chilled bottle or a glass on a beach, by the sea, on a boat, barbecue party. How often do you see a marketing image of a glass of rosé, fire burning, snow outside? Um, it's very much a marketing image, and I've
Okay.
tried, yeah. So that is one big reason.
So really marketing comes to play in this whole situation to
Yes.
market it in the winter. What do you think the main differences are between summer and winter rosé?
I think for summer rosé, an ideal summer rosé is going to be maybe slightly lower in alcohol. If you have a wine, white or red or rosé, that has some residual sugar, it's much easier to put an ice cube in it without diluting the flavor. So you're looking at maybe something with a tiny bit more residual sugar or lighter in alcohol or fresher, great for summer. Go for winter. You're thinking of winter food. Okay, so it's in the evening for me, so I can do this. You have your cup of tea. I have a glass of rosé. And the reason I wanted to show this rosé to you tonight is this is Hungarian.
Oh,
It's 16% alcohol with botrytis, harvested in November. And it's bone dry,
beautiful.
but it is so rich. This is something you could have with a big, cassoulet type stew, beans and meat, roast duck. This is a real winter rosé. It's full bodied. It's satisfying. So I think that's what I would look for in a winter rosé. I'm going to have a drink. So
Okay, sure. And now I'll look down at the questions here. Okay, so rosé sells all year. When are the primary selling months? When are the hot
so that's
spots?
quite, yes. So this is a very interesting point in that, again, the market is forcing it. So ideally, the best time to sell rosé for a winemaker is from April, and that the wine has had time to settle, it's in bottle, it's been on the lees a bit, and it starts showing really well in April. But the en primeur market wants to taste the rosé in January because you need to be able to get it on your wine list by the spring. So everything is geared up to rosé being released from Easter. It's an Easter to Thanksgiving market. Or Easter to Halloween or something. It's that stretch.
Okay. So in France, I've read that the climate affects rosé, and winemakers are making different colors to sell to different regions. And you've had a little bit of information about that, or different
It's
regions in France.
yes, it's very much market driven. I think actually more in Spain and Italy than in France. This is very important. And you will get vineyards that will have maybe three rosés on their list, very pale, medium, and very dark. And the dark one is more likely to sell locally. or North European, North German, Scandinavia are very happy with the darker ones. Central Europe is happy. But England, America like their rosés pale.
Okay.
So depending on
Different
where you're
countries have
studying,
different preference.
yes.
So are winter rosés aged longer than the summer rosé?
Not necessarily. So say if you're looking at Provence with rosés there, Provence food, even in the summer, is quite gutsy. You know, you have garlic mayonnaise, you have quite powerful flavors. So a summer rosé in Provence could be oak aged. It could be a bit more full bodied. Could be slightly longer. But yeah, on the whole, I would say winter rosés probably have had a bit more age, a bit more complexity in age. But you
Okay.
could use your summer rosé and age that for the winter. It doesn't have to be a different wine. You can just age your own wine.
We've also talked about the price of rosé. So we wanted to talk a little bit about why rosé is so affordable. And then I think a little bit about the exquisite wines, the exquisite rosé that you would like to talk about too.
Okay, so why is rosé cheaper? So some producers call it Chateau Cash Cow, because the idea is if you can promote your wine to be drunk within the summer following the vintage, you've made your wine, you've sold your wine, you've emptied the cellars, and you're ready for the next wine. None of this hanging around in barrels and aging. So you're guaranteed a very fast turnaround. And as such, that means that you can economically just get it going. In, out, sell very, very fast. The other thing is the equipment to start off your rosé is expensive. Cooling equipment, all the tanks, that is an initial expenditure. But if you don't age in barrels, if you don't have barrels, you can actually balance your costing, which allows rosé to be quite cheap. But then you look at the most expensive rosés in the world. So we're looking at Garros, which is €100, Clos de Temple at €200, Tondogna at 70. These are all rosés that they've spent a lot of money, very often organic or biodynamic, in barrel, hand-picked, exactly the same as you would a red wine. So the range of prices is the same as elsewhere, but the majority, sadly, is often cheap.
And okay, it was we're talking about marketing. The perception in the beginning was that rosé was very inexpensive or inexpensive. There wasn't. My understanding about that is that it didn't have the clout in the beginning, and then marketing has changed some of that.
Yes. I mean, to a certain extent, as a specialist in rosé, I still will get wine experts going, but you're a master of wine. Why are you wasting your time on rosé?
Okay.
There is still an enormous amount of that. If you look at a restaurant wine list, if you remember what a restaurant wine list looks like, you will get lots of red, lots of white, and maybe your house rosé, 1 or 2 bottles. So the trade is actually very much behind on the consumer preferences at the moment. And a lot of the wine trade does not give credit to the quality that rosé can have. So yeah, it is marketing and trade snobby approach. You know, it's and you're like, after all the fires you had on the West Coast, a lot of producers, if they could harvest the grapes early before the smoke taint got in, they could make a rosé. So then again, rosé is the shortcut version. We couldn't make our grape reds. It helped us economically. We'll just get it in, get it out. So there is a perpetual problem there.
Okay. Would you like to talk about your favorite recommendations for winter rosé and perhaps what to pair with it or serve with it?
Okay, let me start backwards. What to serve with it? So we're vegetarian, so all
I
this
am too.
idea of matching with being vegetarian. Oh, right, so when people goes with meat, I kind of go maybe. But I think so. I'm just writing an article about Schiller, which is a slightly more longer maceration style wine, a bit like Tavel or a bit like some of the Spanish rosés. And it's quite interesting. The rosés that have that slightly longer maceration, slightly darker with a bit of tannin, not sweet, with a bit of tannin, you start realizing they go brilliantly with winter food. So I would suggest don't try looking for a summer rosé that is good with the winter, looking for a totally different style. And the problem is trying to find a stockist that will maybe have that slightly darker, slightly more structured wine. So a lot of Tavel, more veg-based Bandol, not Grenache-based Bandol, more veg-based. A lot of the Tempranillo rosés from northern Spain, especially the slightly darker ones. And strangely, Cabernet d'Anjou, which is a off-dry rosé, has richness, enough richness to go with cheese. So thinking outside the box, maybe not the rosé you would think, but slightly different rosés are great with winter food. So.
Okay, and I believe you'd like to recommend some rosés for Valentine's Day. Right there.
Okay, so I'm going to be personal because it's actually the next day is my birthday, so we tend to be slightly birthday centric on Valentine's Day.
Oh.
And I was thinking about this. What rosé would I serve with for Valentine's Day? And I came to the conclusion that we concentrate on pink, don't we? But white is quite virginal, if that's the way you want to go, or red is bleeding heart. So you could go for any color, really. But if you were going to go for pink and you wanted to match it with pink food, that was another option. And then I thought, you know what? It's really, really conventional, but I don't often get the chance to have pink fizz. Pink fizz for me is quite a decadent luxury. And I'm very tempted to say, forget any finesse, go for something pink and bubbly and joyous and decadent for Valentine's Day. Does that sound bad?
Oh, it sounds lovely. It sounds wonderful. So does France. So how do we find you? So if our audience is looking for you and would like to connect with you on social media or ask questions, what's the best way to reach you? How do we find you?
You can find me. I'm very boring. I use my name. I don't have another name. So Twitter, I'm Liz Gabay MW. Instagram, I'm just checking. What am I on Instagram? I think I'm Elizabeth Gabay on Instagram. Just checking. I am Elizabeth Gabay on Instagram.
Okay.
And LinkedIn, I am around on Liz Gabay, and Facebook. Elizabeth Gabay MW is my work page, or just normally on Facebook. So you're very dull, and there are very few Elizabeth Gabays around. So it's not it's quite easy to find me, really.
Okay, perfect. So I'll talk a little bit about tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. I'll post this on a variety of social media platforms. So it's always Time to Wine. And the Time to Wine broadcast is featured on Pinterest, Twitter, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Periscope. I will be posting this for everyone to watch tomorrow morning at 11, and I'll post the times, the European times, and post it to South Africa as well. So I just wanted to give you a big mwah, merci. and, thank you so much. It's enchanté.
Thank you.
We'll And thank you for talking to me. And I'm glad we had all the tech issues worked out. It all worked out well. And I'll post it tomorrow so everyone can ask us questions. And so be ready for questions tomorrow.
Okay, will do. Lovely speaking to
Okay.
you, Jessica. See you
See you.
soon.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.